Hi, I'm Linda Eastes from Reclaim Your Life Coaching. I want to invite you to our class that we're doing called Thriving in Chaos. This last year, for most people, has been absolute and utter chaos. The instability, the unknowns, the ups and downs that the pandemic has brought to everybody, the fear that has been across society about, have you been exposed? You have to quarantine. Have you quarantined long enough? What's happening to your kids going to school, what's having to work, suddenly having to work from home and manage homeschooling and home and work. And yeah, it's been chaos. There's just no other word for it. And yet some people are really thriving in it and others are really struggling in it. So we want to spend 4 days together and talk about how do you thrive in chaos? Because I think this chaos is going to stay with us a little bit longer. I'm not going to get into any of the other discussions on it, but life is just really, being tossed up in the air and things are coming down in all sorts of ways. And you really want to get to the point where you can stand and not be shaken by it, where you can be clear and make wise decisions and choices. That's what thriving is all about. I know for us at the beginning of this year, we've been working for 3 years towards moving our classes online. We weren't quite ready to launch that out yet. We were still doing in-person classes, doing some trial classes, working things out, but not ready to just move 100% online. And then the pandemic hit, and that was the end of online classes. Everything was shut down. We couldn't have 10, 20 people in a classroom all together. We still can't in most places. And the scramble to put that through there could have been chaos. It wasn't, because we had the tools to manage it. We had the techniques and the energy medicine and the processes that allow us to not get caught up in the negative parts of that. On a personal level, it's been difficult because I have a disabled adult son who lives in Canada. I'm currently sitting in Mexico and have been throughout the lockdowns and pandemic. And I can't travel to go visit him. And he's had some health challenges due to the pandemic and due to the hospitals putting all their focus on COVID and not really paying attention to anything else. And it's been a lot of chaos around how do we get help to him? How do we get support to him? How do we provide things that I normally would have just gone and done with him and for him, because I travel for classes all the time. I'd go up for a month at a time and take classes and spend a week with them and do all this kind of stuff. And suddenly that was all just stopped. And it could have been absolute chaos. And it has been very difficult without any question. But on the other hand, we have the tools and the techniques and the ability to not get sucked into that and to be able to thrive in the process and be able to ensure that those needs were met in an appropriate way. It's taken a lot of creative work. And if I had allowed the chaos to take over, I couldn't have come up with those creative solutions. So, day one, we're going to talk about how does this chaos affect us. We all know that there are physical effects from being in this chaos. And it's not just about the pandemic. This chaos can be, for a lot of people in Alberta, where I come from, over the last 3 years have been thrown into chaos because their jobs in the oil field have just disappeared. The oil industry has been shut down and hundreds, thousands of people lost their jobs, their livelihoods. In many cases, both husband and wife worked in the oil patch, and suddenly neither of them have a job and no prospect of any jobs. That's chaos. For many people, the loss of a relationship, the loss of a spouse, the death of a close person can bring chaos. And chaos happens at various points in our life. It's not something that's just for now and it's going to go away. We always are going to have these periods where it comes up in waves. And so we need to know how to thrive in chaos regardless. Just because the pandemic has given us a very good example of a prolonged chaos affecting almost everyone on an individual level, chaos happens all the time. And being able to thrive in that process makes the difference between being depressed and at home and unable to function to thriving and moving forward and finding creative ways to deal with what you need to do and carry on in an appropriate way. So day one, we're going to talk about how does it affect us physically, how does it affect us emotionally, mentally, what is the subconscious aspect of it, how does that chaos bring up stuff out of the subconscious that suddenly we're having to deal with that, in calm, peaceful, regular, normal times, we were able to keep stuff away and didn't have to deal with. Well, chaos tends to bring that stuff up, kind of like stirring the bottom of the pot and all the bits and pieces come to the top and add to the chaos and have to be dealt with. So we want to look at all that stuff. And particularly, we want to talk about what are the energy medicine foundations that allow us to deal with those things. What are the energy medicine tools and techniques that allow us to calm the physical, to smooth out some of the emotional and mental stuff, to bring clarity, to allow us to look at that subconscious stuff and deal with it in an appropriate way. We want to set some energy medicine foundations. That's day one. Day two, we want to identify what is the bad programming, what is the chaos created damage in our system, where has chaos highlighted or created glitches and problems for us in our mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, whatever aspect of us. And how do we identify those things and then find the right piece of both coaching and energy medicine to address that appropriately? We want to share with you the wondrous possibilities that there are for reprogramming how we think, reprogramming our hearts, reprogramming the subconscious, reprogramming even your DNA. Energy medicine gives us this ability to function at a completely different level than just coaching. And it's an amazing process to be able to do the two together. The coaching is your side of it. The energy medicine comes in and two blend together and allow things to happen that could just never happen otherwise. So we're going to look at how to identify where those problems and glitches and programming issues are, and then look at how do we reprogram some of that stuff. Obviously, this is just, the tip of the iceberg on all of these. Our whole coaching program spends 6 months going in depth on all of this stuff. But just to give you a smattering taste of what's available to you. Day 3, we're going to talk about how we use energy medicine to be able to pivot and build resilience. When you think about, we're in a storm, we're in a mess. There's a lot of winds of all kinds of things blowing, winds of change, winds of fear, winds of, all kinds of stuff. Do you want to be the reed that blows and moves in the wind and when it's over is still standing? Or do you want to be the oak tree that the wind hits and limbs break and trees come down and a lot of damage happens? There are times when being an oak tree is the right thing to be. There are times when being the reed blows in the wind and doesn't get damaged by it is the thing to be. And that's where we use energy medicine to help us be the oak tree when we need to be and be the reed when we need to be. And being the reed will allow us to pivot and change and go at it from a different perspective and to do things differently that are appropriate to the situation we find ourselves in. So we'll talk about how we use the energy medicine to build that resilience so that we can be the reed in the wind and build the flexibility and build the creativity in the midst of all the chaos that will allow us to pivot and still come out of this well. Day 4, we're going to do a bonus session. We'll do some review on a bunch of this stuff because we're going to cover a lot of topics quickly. So we'll do some review there, and then we're going to give you a sneak peek of what it's actually like to work with us. How is it to work with us? How do we actually put this coaching and energy medicine together and build a community and provide support and how, what's your access to us? How do we work together? All that kind of stuff on day 4. Please join us. We know that this is life-changing for so many people. So many people have this great exterior front and they keep it together in public or at work, and they come home and it all falls apart. Well, this is precisely where the kind of chaos where you can thrive. You've got the tools. We'd love to work with you on it. Join us and get into thriving in chaos.